in. We're fucking locked the fuck in now. And we're back. Hold up, let me do this fucking intro. Hello, and welcome to At All Hours, the show with hot questions and even hotter wings. I'm your host, Greg Ramirez, and this is episode number 13. Spooky dookie caca in my pants. We are hitting spooky season. Well, we're in spooky season already. I'm just a little behind on it. But it's awesome. I'm pretty pumped. That's why the show right now is dressed as, you can't see it, but our entire set right now it looks like the set of Hot Ones. I actually have a bald cap on right now. And I'm dressed as Sean Evans from Hot Ones. Shout out to Sean Evans. I know he needs it, from us. But yeah, finally spooky season, right? I'm just big into like fall season in general. Like I can't stand the heat, and once October rolls around, it's kind of like the remnants of kind of like hot days or warmer days, and then November it's like less and less, and then after that we should be good. But I mean, if you live in like Southern California, you already know that October, it's not like cold season guaranteed all the time. It's always like every year. If you don't live in like Southern California, then you probably don't care, which I mean, you might not. You might live in Southern California and still not really care, which is, fine. But every year in Southern California, there's always the same like process for the transition between summer to to fall into winter. So the transition always goes from, because basically we have like 8 months of like warm weather, of like hot weather, and then maybe 4 months of cooler weather. We really only have 2 seasons, and then for like a month they get a little more intense. So like we have like 8 months of hot weather, and then for maybe a month it gets like way worse, or like a couple months maybe. Well, like 4 months it gets worse. And then for winter it's like 4 months of like chilly, kind of rainy weather, and then for like a couple of days it'll like, it's fucking snowing 20 minutes outside of LA, and it's like, what is happening there? It just gets super cold. There's like a super crazy cold spike, and then winter's over. But the same thing happens with summer, where it gets like really hot in like the middle of like, July and stuff. But then it's like it starts cooling down, and everyone's like, oh, like summer's coming to an end. But the ones that pay attention really know like what's about to happen. And that is that there's a fucking heat wave. There's usually 2 heat waves, and it's every single year. And people are always confused by it, where they're like, whoa, oh, it got so hot all of a sudden. And it's like, yeah, this happened last year and the year before that and the year before that. And it's always at the end of summer, right? So the end of summer comes, and then it gets incredibly hot. Like it goes from being like maybe 80 to 90, 95 maybe, to suddenly jumping to like 110 for like a week. And it's insanely hot for no reason. And then after that, it just cools down. And then everyone's like, oh fuck, like now summer's over. And then it's not quite over, because then there's like a second heat wave. But it's also not that bad. It just kind of goes from like 70 degrees, and then it goes back up to like 90 for like another week or two, and then it starts going down after that. So that's kind of where we're at now, is like that kind of actual come down of like the heat, which is so much better. I cannot fucking stand the heat. I don't know if anyone out there is like a psycho that loves, like, I don't understand how people are like, oh, I love like when it's like middle of summer. Like people that go to Vegas in summer are insane people. Like I get going somewhere when it's like going to be sunny. Like, yeah, I would want to go to Vegas where I can actually walk around outside and actually go places that I'm like, because the whole thing in like a lot of Vegas, you're kind of outside, right? You're like driving or you're walking most of the time. So you want to be able to be outside. And it's like you go in those like fall or spring kind of months and you run the risk of, a bunch of rain or even like flooding because Vegas has like super compacted ground. So when it rains, it gets like flooded really easily. And because like the floor just cannot, like the ground cannot absorb the water. I'm pretty sure. I'm a scientist as well. So in case that sounds wrong to you, it's not. Okay. But yeah, I get why people would want to go to certain places. I myself, try to plan trips around going to a place in more guaranteed warmer weather rather than going like because my birthday is in like cold months. So it's always like if I try to do something on my birthday, like if I was going to go camping or something, it's very likely that it's going to rain. And it's also very likely that it's going to be in the middle of the week. I have like the worst birthday day, like to do anything. It's always the weekend before or after, or the months after because it's fucking raining all the time and storming and shit. So, not ideal. So, I get when people want to plan for like a more warm season, but then to be like, I want to go to Vegas when it's like hot, really hot. Insane. That's psychotic behavior. I just don't understand. I don't understand what people gain from it. Maybe old people because they're old and they're just like always cold. I don't know how that happens. Like the older you get, the colder you get. Write that down, okay? That one's free. You can have that one, okay? Just credit me. You know what? Don't credit me. I don't want our names next to each other, okay? So you can keep it. I don't even want it anymore. That suits you better anyway. So yeah, spooky season. Thank God. We're so back. Winter's coming. That's not a reference, but it is. Well, not that it's a reference, but winter is coming, but not that that's a reference. Anyway, and I'm pretty pumped. I prefer the cooler months. I prefer the cooler times of the year. I think like any sane person would. If you like the like hotter months or you like the hotter seasons, can you at least let me know why you do? Because it's different with like people like the holidays too, because it's not only just like the weather, but like the actual holidays that come around that time. So like Halloween, people love Halloween. And then, Christmas, people, it's huge here. And in Japan, I think. They have KFC on Christmas. Isn't that so crazy? So it's not just like the weather change, but also like the holidays that come around that weather change, But like summer has what? 9/11? Probably not. That's probably not top of the list. Holidays that, probably 4th of July, right? That was a weird one to say that, but other things, there's other things, other like party holidays, right? Anyway, so if you're a weird summer freak, let me know why. Why do you like summer? Why do you prefer the hotter months? Like, what is it about hotter months or just like hotter temperatures in general? It's like moving to like people move to Texas. I get it's not just because it's like the weather. Like some people like hot weather, which is why I'm like confused. But it's like that people will go to Texas because it's like cheaper, or because of like the city there, I guess, or like Austin and shit, whatever. But it's like going to Arizona. What's in Arizona? Or New Mexico? I have family in New Mexico, but I wouldn't move there for them. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, why would you move to Arizona or to New Mexico where it's like it's a hot desert? outside of like maybe just like I guess rent, or like if you're gonna buy a house, obviously you're like, well, I can't really afford a house in this area, but like I'll move to Arizona, fuck it, you know? I get that side of it, but like other than that, what other reason would you have? What other things do people do in the summer besides go to malls or stay in their house if you have central air? Or if you're like me and you don't even have fucking insulation in your house, you just go sit outside and point the water hose straight up into the air and like that's it. Or take 6 showers a day with cold water. Like that's all of summer. This has been the weather portion of our episode. So whatever. Fuck the heat. Cold weather gang. Spooky season gang. And since it is a spooky season, it brings us to our first topic, which that wasn't our first topic. That just, I don't even know where that came up. But our first topic of this episode, torture. I know this, it's a little, things are getting a little dicey with how much I'm bringing up, eating people, murder, torture. I mean, like there's true crime podcasts and stuff. They talk about it. Why is it weird when I talk about it, but not weird when they talk about it? You know, why am I the weird one all the time just because I talk about eating people? Okay, hold on. Let me take a drink. Damn, that's good. So why am I weird? Right? Just because I'm sitting in my house alone right now, about to tell you some shit about torture. Right? I'm here with Chiwiwis. She's asleep. And I want to go over some stuff about torture with you guys. Because one of the things that I think was very interesting to me that I heard recently from a YouTuber, Shrouded Hand. He's one of my favorite YouTubers. He does like a lot of true crime stuff. Really cool video, like really cool videos that he makes. So if you haven't heard of him and you like that kind of like video essay, kind of like, 20-minute video about like true crime kind of stuff or like weird crimes, things like that, he's a really good account to follow. So go check him out. But he had done a video that was kind of like talking about like a particular kind of torture, and he phrased it in a very like interesting way that it kind of made me think about, which was the fact that in like all of history, right, we've always kind of made advancements in a lot of different things. So we've always, like, even something as simple as like like a plane. Like we had the first like planes that we made, and then now we have like planes that can hold a bunch of people and fly incredible distances at incredible speeds. We even have fucking rockets that go into space. And it all started, well, I don't know if it all started, rockets started as planes. Write that down. But you know what I mean, right? Like it's like there's someone who's just, they made the plane. The Wright brothers, right? Fact check that. Don't fact check that. Leave it in. The Wright brothers, I'm just going to double down. The Wright brothers made the first ever plane, and it fit like one of them or two of them. I don't fucking remember, or no, actually. But it went from there to being like where we're at now. So we've always made those advancements, right? The only thing is, with torture, we've pretty much nailed it a long time ago, because there hasn't really been a lot of advancements in torture methods, because very early on we figured out what hurts people, like how to hurt each other. And that's something that's been like a focal point in human history, is our capacity to harm people and our willingness to understand or to learn the extent of how to harm someone and like maximize pain and suffering in someone else. And that's really interesting that it's something that we figured out a long time ago. And I don't want to say there's advancements in torture, like, oh, new torture just dropped today. It's not like that. It's not like we're making advancements, like we're trying to in that sense. It's more of like nothing's really changed. For instance, like waterboarding, right? It's something as simple as having water as a effective tool for torture, and it's something we discovered a long time, because it's not like just drowning someone and like, dunking their head underwater or whatever else. It's like a specific type of torture, which is like waterboarding. And from there, we're like that, who knows how long ago that was. Fact check that. And yet all this time later, we still do it the same way. So when I heard that, it was kind of trippy to like consider that like we make advancements in everything that we do because we always can make it better. Like cars, same thing. Andy also coined another pretty deep phrase, that the first cars were horses. That's pretty crazy, right? And then we built off of that. We threw 4 wheels on those bitches and added more horses into them or something. I don't really know how cars work, or horses, I guess. So, but yeah. So with that, I wanted to talk about some of the other pretty interesting torture methods that we've, as a society, have developed, and I want to talk about a couple of my favorites. So since we're on the topic of water sports, right? Look that up. Since we're already on that kind of topic, there's a lot of pretty insane torture methods outside of waterboarding that include water, which is really just like, it's very simple. Very simple. For instance, there is a type of torture where essentially I think it was in Russia, and they have they'll have like a prisoner inside of a cell that is essentially like it's like filled up. So think of like a room that's like filled with like ice cold water. It's fucking wintertime in Russia, okay? Okay? Wintertime. It's wintertime in Russia. Sounds like an old like Chiodo song or something like that. So it's wintertime in these like really cold countries, and their cells are filled with like icy water, and on top are like protruding from the water is a very small like platform, right? And there's nothing else in the room. It's just this like small platform where they can, if you were to stand on it, you could like just barely like stand with your feet together on this like little platform. So it's just small enough for you to not be able to like sit on it really, or like obviously not lay on it, but like to orient yourself on this like small platform outside of essentially just standing on it. And fucking Chiwiwis is sliding down. So outside of that, you can only stand. And it's kind of like, how long can you really stand in one place that in like an uncomfortable position, right? So you can stand on it, but then the second your body gives out to like fatigue, or if you get tired, the alternative is jumping into this like icy pool of water. And as soon as you hit the water, you're immediately like trying to get out, trying to get back up on that platform. But at least you're able to kind of move around in the water, but it's also freezing water. And then you try to go back up on the platform, and now you're cold from being soaked in water and you can barely stand. And then you just go back into the water because your legs are killing you and your back hurts and you're trying to like find a different position and you keep slipping in. And it just continues on like that until they free you, or until you give them what they want, or until you die. It's pretty fucked up. There was a guy that figured the only way to to kind of try to survive this was to basically stay in the water and continuously run, because it can at least try to keep your body a little warm, but you're just expending all your energy on it as well. So basically a lose-lose. Pretty fucked up. There's also some Asian torture methods. This is also, I wish I did have a camera, not only to show you my Sean Evans cosplay, obviously, but to show you that I don't have a script that I'm going off of, or even notes that I have for, this is all just, it's in my memory. It's all I think about, actually, is what I mean. So I know it seems kind of just where is all this coming from? It's up here. It's in the dome, It's always in there. It's all I think about. So anyway, there's a Asian, I think it was Vietnamese, torture method, where basically they put you, again, you're in a little box of water, basically. And that's it. And it's super simple and super horrible. So they'll put you in a box, and it's filled with water, basically to maybe your just under your chin, right? But the box itself is just too short to be able to let you fully stand. So if you're I'm about 5'10", so I would get in a box and it's maybe 5'7", right? It's not or maybe 5'5", right? It's not a huge amount where I'm completely cramped, where I'm having to tuck my knees up to my chin, but it's more I can't stand at my full height. I'm hunched over, or I have to keep my back crouched, or I have to bend my knees a little bit. You're in almost a squatting position, essentially. And they fill the water up to just underneath your chin. And they just keep you in there. And then they're see you in 6 months. And that's it. And you might be thinking, okay, well, that doesn't sound too bad, just kind of sitting in water. It is that bad, because you can't ever stand and stretch your back out. So your whole body's cramped. But you also can't ever feel the relief of if you imagine going into what is it called? Those standing squats, right? In the old Jackie Chan movies, where he has to squat and he holds the books, but then he has a little thing under his legs so he can stand up. Put the clip in. So it's you're squatting, but you can never really get you can't get onto your knees and stretch your back out. You can't really sit down all the way, because the box is also kind of just let's say 2 feet in each direction. So it's a very cramped box, and you can never really get fully comfortable. And if you do try to slink down where you can kind of stretch your back out, you're completely submerged underwater. And then also it's I don't know if you've ever taken, or if you've gone swimming, or if you've taken a really long shower and your skin gets pruny. It's that is after maybe a few hours of swimming, let alone being in completely submerged underwater for days, for months, and it's your skin starts to break down and just kind of starts coming off. So you might also be thinking, Greg, what if I have to, go pee-pee or caca? Well, I'm glad you asked, because guess what? You don't have another box to shit in. You shit in your box. You don't have another piss box. You piss in your box. Okay? You piss in your box. You caca in your box. And then where does it go? It stays in your box with you. That's you in there, floating it around, making little laps, like little brown little crocodiles. Little fucking brown crocodiles doing laps around your head as you're seeing it go around. And now, guess what? It's not going anywhere. Now you're just do you suddenly feel sick? And now you have to throw up because you're gagging from your fucking nasty little crocodiles everywhere? Guess what? You don't get a puke box. It's in your box. And then your skin is falling off now. And now you have all this caca water going into your lesions and your skin that's melting off of your body. And you can't even sit down. Isn't that fucking diabolical? It's like the whole time you're just like, you just die inside of a fucking soup. Inside of a cramped box. And you know the worst part about it? Your back's going to hurt when you die. That sucks. I would hate to die with, like, you know, you sleep wrong. God, imagine dying and you're like, oh, my back fucking kills. And you die. Get covered in shit. Anyway, moving on. So there's also this is more of a popular one. The Brazen Bull. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. So the Brazen Bull was it was a type of instrument of torture that was made a long time ago. Okay, I didn't look it up, and I'm not going to look it up, but it was made a fucking long time ago. And basically, I think it was like made out of like copper or some sort of like metal, right? Some sort of brown metal. It's gonna be the name of my my new metal band as well. That's gonna be my genre of metal. Anyway, it's this giant bull, and on the side is basically like a little like hatch that opens up, and it's like imagine like a full size to scale statue of a bull, but it's hollow inside. So on the side, it opens this panel up, and you can go inside of it. Why would you go in? I don't know if anyone heard my ice maker in the background. Why would you go inside of it, you might ask? Well, you're probably not the one choosing to go inside of it. But essentially, a prisoner is placed inside of the Brazen Bull, right? And doesn't seem like the worst thing ever, right? Just kind of sitting inside of a giant copper bull statue. It's dark in there, but, you know, whatever. Are you afraid of the dark? Me too. So that's not the torture. The torture comes from what you see on the outside, right? What the audience is like, this is getting fucking good. And what they do is they essentially just light it on fire. Light a fire underneath it, but I said it that way for comedic effect. And, you know, I know how funny it was. So let's paint the picture, okay? So there is a giant bull, like a to scale bull, right? It is filled. Also, this is, I forgot to mention this. It can fit a person comfortably, right? It usually was filled with people. So it's not like you just had one prisoner who's going to be sentenced to death in this thing. It was usually prisoners, and they were shoved in there till it was basically max capacity. Shut the fucking door. They set the fire underneath the bull, and then just wait. And they just sit back, and the bull was also designed, its head, the horns of its head were designed like kind of like a wind instrument, right? So like the horns come out, and I think it's through the horns. They come out, and it is supposed to allow all the screams and all the noise and all the shit that's going on inside of that bull to be able to be like pushed through the like little kind of pipes that are coming out through the horns, so that it sounds like so it sounds like a bull making a noise. Like it's supposed to be like a whistle that kind of comes out, or like a bull noise or something like that. I don't fucking remember, but yeah, it's just being cooked alive. So it's like, imagine if you're inside, imagine if you will, especially if you're really high right now and you're listening to this and you're just like, I want to put on like a cool, like chill podcast. Sorry, but imagine, if you will, that you're a prisoner, right? And you're maybe, let's say, like third in line, right? And they're feeding everyone into the side of this bull. So someone gets in, and then someone else gets in, and then now you get in, and you're kind of like, they're laying down, and you're kind of getting on top of them. So you're kind of like half touching the bottom of the bull, half like just laying on top of someone else, and someone else gets on top of you, and they're just kind of cramming. You guys are like laying all on top of each other, right? And then they shut it, and it's now pitch black. You're laying half on top of like two people, and kind of like you feel like your knee kind of against like the metal a little bit. And then there's someone else, like two other people kind of pressing down on top of you, like you have full body weight laying on you, and it's pitch black, right? And then you hear some like stuff going on outside, and then you hear like cheering, and then you start to feel hot. And from where you're able to feel the bottom of the bull, like where your knees are exposed, right? It starts getting warm, and you feel like on your palm, like trying to get up. And then the people you're on top of definitely feel it now. And they're also trying to not be on the bottom, because as you feel everything heating up, the bottom of the bowl essentially turns into a fucking frying pan, right? It's just metal that's being heated up. So it's like starting to glow now, and then you're trying to stay on top and not touch it, because as soon as you touch it, it's just ripping hot metal. And the people that are on the bottom are trying to get up from the bottom, but now their skin's starting to melt to the actual metal part, and now you're starting to smell like meat cooking. And then every time you touch the metal, it just kind of rips at your skin, and you're also getting pushed down by the people who are above you, because they don't want to touch it either, but you guys are now either in on a frying pan or in an oven. So you just stay in there until your body starts boiling and all your like inside start cooking and burning, and you burst into flames, and everyone dies, and you die alone. Well, not alone, but alone, scared in the dark, being cooked to death. And then everyone else, all you hear is the screams of the people inside of the bull, but knowing that everyone outside is cheering about you being cooked to death, essentially. So that's pretty fun, right? Also, fun fact, that the first person that died in the brazen bull was the guy who created the brazen bull, because I think it was like he was so like arrogant about making the bull, and was just like, guys, I made the brazen bull for the king, and it's awesome. It's one of the best things that's ever been invented. And then they were like, oh, that's cool, man. And he's like, I don't think you get it. It's not cool. It's changing the world. And they're like, take it easy, man. I already said it was cool. And he's like, it's you guys aren't even wrapping your head around this, okay? Get your head out of your own ass and wrapped around this bull, okay? This is gonna fucking change the course of so many people's lives, and I'm gonna be remembered forever. And he was, as the first guy to die in the brazen bull, the inventor of the brazen bull. And that's his name, the inventor of the brazen bull, because who fucking cares? Fuck that guy. But the king was just like, I think it was a king. He was like, that guy's kind of a prick. I'm going to throw him in there. Let's test this bitch out, So that's fun. The brazen bull, it's a pretty big one, I think. It's like, there's some that are kind of like iconic too, but they're not like the Iron Maiden dun 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 dun, you know that. But the thing is, I think there's like no historical proof of like the Iron Maiden being used. It's just kind of like they found it, or they kind of constructed it from things that were like nearby, which was just like a basically like a tomb, and then it had like they put spikes inside of it. So you'd put in theory, you'd put someone inside of this like kind of think like a mummy, like a pharaoh's tomb kind of thing. Put him in there, and then you close the doors, and it has the big spikes inside. You know, so that's pretty fun. I think it would have been cool, but a little short. You know, like what's the point of like? I think the thing is, if you're going to torture someone, the whole point is to like make it pretty extensive. You know, you're not going to just like torture someone for 2 seconds. You know, it's not torture. It's just murder at that point. You know, I don't want to be that guy, the torture guy, or the or the murder guy. Like I'm not an expert on it by any means, but you know, I think I'm entitled to you know my opinions on it. I think my opinions are. I've done research. Clearly, you know, it's obvious. It's all there. It's online. I mean, it's not like anything I've done. You know, has been anything from personal experience. Anyway, so one of the tortures that is one of my favorites, they usually is just called like the raft, or I believe it's actually called like scaphism, which is a super cool name. I was going to say it's like great metal band name, but I think it might actually be a metal band called Scaphism, or at least an album must be called Scaphism. And you want to talk about like extended torture and suffering, but without it being like that water box thing. That one usually like you can stay, like your body will just stay alive, because it's like you're essentially continuously like like there's not a lot of variable change, right? It's like it gets worse, but it's really slowly getting worse. Like there's people who have been in that kind of torture scenario and have survived and were like freed, and it's horrible. But you know, there's also times where people they'll have like they'll have people in those like boxes, and then they just throw in like snakes or rats or any other kind of like a monkey in there with you, and just like the animal will hurt you and then fight whatever other animals are in there, and then also just die inside, and now you just have like a monkey corpse inside of your or like rat corpses or snake corpses just floating around your little water box. So not very cool, but it's they made it worse. But with scaphism, it was essentially you go out, you're a prisoner, right? It starts off really lovely, I think. So you're a prisoner, right? You're kind of a jerk, and which is fine. I'm something of a jerk myself. And essentially, you're brought out to like a lake, right? Nice little peaceful, beautiful lake. I'm just gonna paint the picture for you again, okay? So now you went through the brazen bull. You were in the water box, right? You got waterboarded a little bit. You went through the brazen bull where you were basically fully cooked, like myself right now. And then now I'm gonna paint the picture again, but this time we're going outside. We're heading out to the great outdoors, okay? And what are we doing out here? I'm glad you asked. I really am. I really appreciate when you ask me these kinds of things. You know, when we're like, you know, we're going to do something together, but you don't know what it is. I'm glad you asked. The fuck? Something just fell inside my house. Anyway, so that was my ice maker. So we go out to a lake. Okay, this is first date. Okay, I'm gonna describe our. I'm taking POV. I'm taking you out on a date. Okay, so you're bound and gagged already, but we go to a really nice scenic lake. It's a really big open lake, right? And it's like a fall, summer, kind of like summer, right? It's a little nice warm summer nights, right? So it's evening, and we get there. Sun's still up, but it's, a couple hours out from setting. And I, take you out, and obviously like slung over my shoulder. And then we have a boat waiting for us. Well, not for us, for you. And I lay you down in the boat. And what do you think happens next? If you don't know what this is, what our date's going to be like, I want you to just guess what comes next. Okay? What do you think the next thing is going to be? You have your guess ready? Do you want to pause it? Should I continue? Okay. So I tie you up to the boat, which is not the thing that I was going to say, but you are tied up now to the boat, and I start feeding you milk and honey. Did you guess right? Did you make the right guess? Not only do I start feeding you milk and honey, but I start slathering your little sexy body down. That's creeping me out now. I didn't like that. I'm not going to cut it out. Whatever. But I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that again. I, very platonically rub you down with honey and milk and feed you honey and milk until you're like, I'm so stuffed. I can't eat. I couldn't even eat any more honey or milk. And then I go, okay. And then I force a funnel into your throat, and I just pour milk and honey into your body. So now you thought you were full. Not so. Okay? There's plenty more room in there. You just need to really believe in yourself. So now you're getting to the point where, well, I don't know if you've ever seen like milk challenges. Shout out to Max Mofo. Your body cannot hold in a lot of milk because that's why people throw up milk. But your body just can't digest it fast enough. It's not like water, where like it'll thin your blood out and shit. It's like your body will get filled with milk, and then you'll just start throwing it up because it has like fat in it and has a bunch of stuff in it. Your body can't digest fast enough, so it just regurgitates it, which you do. But since you're tied up to our lovely little boat that I got for us, for you, and you just throw it up all over yourself. Naughty. And because of that, I'm going to give you more milk and honey. So now you're covered in milk and honey, literally covered head to toe in milk and honey and vomit. And your stomach is filled where your stomach's like distended, and, you're bloated, filled with milk and honey, covered in milk and honey. And now is when things get a little romantic. Okay, the sun's starting to set. It's nice and warm outside. And I get the boat, right? It's right at the edge of the water. And you're looking up at me like, man, this is not the way I was expecting today to go. And I look down at you and I smirk, make sure all the knots are secured so that way you don't fall out of the boat or anything like that. And make sure you're tied down and secured. I make sure, give you one more coating of milk and honey all over your body, and then send you off into the middle of this lake. And I sit down and I watch as you make your way to the middle of this little lake until it slows down and sun's setting, and all of these different bugs come out. So there's mosquitoes and flies and a bunch of different swamp creatures that are in this lake. And now there is a giant milk and honey buffet on display for all of God's little creatures to come up and enjoy. And what do? They dig in. So now you're completely tied up. Also, you're naked. Sorry. And your whole body is covered with milk and honey. And now your whole body is covered with milk and honey and different various insects that inhabit this lake. And now they're inhabiting your boat. And within a few hours or by the next day, they're going to start inhabiting your body. They're going to start trying to go into your mouth. They're definitely going to go into your ears and genitals, your butthole, your cookie if you're a girl, your pecker if you're a boy. I already said butthole, right? Well, your butthole. They're going to start going anywhere they can. They'll go through your nose, they'll go into your eyes. They'll just start burrowing into your skin. And it's not going to be fast because, it's just not. It's like a bug bite. You get one bug bite, you're not going to die, immediately. And some of these bugs, they just burrow into your skin and just live there. Sometimes, other animals might make it onto your little boat. And maybe birds start showing up. Now there's a buffet of bugs. So maybe birds are starting to show up too. And they're like, well, there's fucking milk and honey too. I'm like, damn. All right, I'll get in on this. And now you're just a fucking floating buffet for whatever until also you're going to shit yourself. And you're probably going to throw up at some point. But when you shit, the crazy part is you're going to shit out nothing but milk and honey. So you're going to shit out nothing but milk and honey. And then when you do that, it's like second servings for all these fucking disgusting bugs. So now you're covered in bugs. You're covered in vomit and shit and piss. And you're just in this like hot summer heat 24 hours a day until your body goes into shock and you die. Happy Halloween. So that was one of my favorites. Obviously the whole time I'm off on the sideline and I'm just watching this happen. I'm probably making TikToks of, myself dancing while your body's getting riddled with bugs and stuff. Maybe I'm doing some other illicit substances, drinking a beer, maybe having one beer and a couple cigarettes, just watching it happen, watching the my work play out, some of my greatest work, our first date. So yeah, those are some of my favorite torture methods. Let me know what you guys think. What was your favorite torture method? Do you have one that you think should have been covered? That also wasn't extensive. There's a lot of different kinds of tortures. But it's crazy to think that all these years ago, we just got, this is only like I said, a small handful of some of the tortures that we've come across. But the fact that we were able to do something like this, and even now, up until the past 100 years, our methods of torture haven't changed. It's kind of like I said with that guy Shrouded Hand earlier. One of the things that he pointed out, which really blew my mind, was that torture hasn't really made any advances because it never really had to until we discovered electricity. And that discovery was the biggest advancement we had in torture, essentially, because you can't there's so many things that we already had discovered and had incorporated them into hurting people. So it was like fire. As soon as we learned how to make fire, we learned how to cook and kill with it. We're we need water to drink, but we could also drown people in it or just put them in a little box with snakes and monkeys. But, for the most part, it's always been the same up until we discovered electricity and there was other forms of torture suddenly introduced, birthed to the world. Okay? Like there's one, it reminds me, I think this is where, no, it wasn't from the same video, but I think Shrouded Hand also covered a video about it. But a lot of these guys have like covered like, true crime or like, these kind of graphic YouTuber video essay guys. But about this form of torture in like South America in like, I want to say the like 70s or something like that. Like not a long time ago. But they tortured people by essentially putting them on a like metal like bed frame. So like the bed frame, and then it has like the spring, like metal springs on the bottom where you'd put the mattress on top. I know some people don't even know what a mattress like that looks like, or that mattresses aren't just like a metal, frame and then like a box spring and then a mattress on top, or however you think a mattress looks. But there's like, that was my bed when I was like 17, was just like a fucking four bars of metal with like metal springs laid across, and you just put a little mattress down on top of it. But no mattress. You just lay on the metal springs and you're like strapped to this all metal bed frame basically. And they attach, pieces of metal to parts of your body or inside parts of your body that we don't really need to go into the details. We don't need to go into the nitty gritty of it. I think you can read between the lines, Where would you not want things, put or put into if there was possibly, I don't know, some form of electricity going to be surging into that thing or onto that thing or things. So, yeah, and that was called the rack. And they would just set people on it, and they could electrocute the whole thing and just electrocute your whole body. They can just put pieces of metal into or onto parts of your body in order to maximize the pain and suffering you feel. And yeah, they're just like, just using electricity. They're like, wow, can't believe we never thought about this. This is awesome. Pretty good stuff. That's not even getting into like psychological torture, but we'll get into that in another episode, I guess, which I could go on forever with that. Okay. But we'll save it for another episode. But that also makes me think of, this is another topic I wanted to kind of cover. This is also a very like, a very questioning, like not questionable, questioning episode, like me, questioning you guys, because I want to know what your guys' favorite torture is too. I care about you guys. I really think about you guys, And like when people tell me that they listen to At All Hours, it really genuinely like makes my day. Like when they're like, "Oh, that last episode was so funny," or when you do that episode with so and so good. And it's really rewarding to hear stuff like that. Genuinely, it's so cool because like it really does show that people are into it and that it's worth my time doing, because I've done podcasts in the past. Like I've talked about like hotel and drive by and stuff like that. And it's always been fun to do, but it's not really like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to continue to do when you're not getting like any feedback. It's just not like, not that it's not as rewarding. Because like full transparency, when I put out my album Apocalypse, I didn't get like a lot of feedback from like a lot of people. There's a few people, like definitely a handful of people who were like, "Oh, the album's cool," or it was, I really like this like one song or whatever it is. Like I just didn't get like a lot from it, but that's also kind of not what I did the album for. Like I made the album because I really wanted to have something to show after all my years of writing and being a writer and being a musician. And up till this point, I never had any sort of like, nothing to show. I never recorded my songs. I never recorded anything that was, my own music, where it was never anything I could be proud of. And, and then like any people that I played with in the past are just like, they're not relevant in my life anymore, and they're not relevant in general. So fuck you, all of you people ever. But yeah, it's never been like anything that I had to do for like any sort of feedback. It was that I wanted to make it so I can put it out in order for me to be able to look back and be like, I did that. I did that all on my own, But with At All Hours, it's always been like getting feedback from people weekly. Like I'm putting out weekly content, and then if I don't hear anything at all, then it's kind of like who am I doing this for? Like I'm doing this for me, but it's also like for other people in that sense, because I'm doing a podcast versus like doing like music for me. That's the way I've always had it in my head. But that's also kind of what made me think about this, because people have kind of told me here and there where like, oh, I was I listened to your episode, and like I was getting ready for work and I had it on, and it was really funny. And I'm like, that's cool, like I love hearing shit like that. I love when people tell me that they listen to it, especially when they're like, oh, when you talked about this in that one episode, so funny, or like it was so cool, that this story was so good, whatever, like it kind of really shows like, oh, you are listening to it. It's not like, oh, I listen to your podcast all the time and that's the end of it. It's like, which is cool, that's completely fine. Like, I don't expect anything more, but it's more like when someone else does say, oh, I listened to your episode with so-and-so, so good, it was so funny when you guys did this and said that. Or like, oh, I listened to this episode, and when you were talking about this and you said that, dude, that killed me. It's always so much more reassuring that what I'm doing is worth doing, But then it made me think, like, what do people do when they listen to At All Hours? And it's something that's kind of been brought up before to me. Like I said, like some people have been like, someone has told me like, oh, I was getting ready for work, so I threw on your podcast and just was listening to it, and it's really funny. And because for me, I listen to a lot of podcasts. Like I used to listen to a lot of Fuckface. I used to listen to Dudesy a lot. And then even not even podcasts necessarily, like just kind of like I said, like video essay kind of people, like Shrouded Hand, Mr. Ballin, Creepcast I've been listening to a lot. And it's always like something that I did because when I was a delivery driver, which maybe, I don't know if I've talked that much about being a delivery driver, but well, whatever, another time. But like I would listen to music as much as I could. But the thing is, if you're doing like 8 hours straight, you kind of want to like engage your brain in a different way. So I always listened to podcasts, and like, or even like Two Bears, One Cave with like Tom Segura, The Honeydew with Ryan Sickler, like comedian podcast too. And I always did it when I was driving. So now, of course, I'll listen to music when I'm driving around whenever. But if I'm like going to work, 9 out of 10 times I'm listening to a podcast or a video essay on some topic, or like iceberg videos are really cool too, or like it's like a, I don't know, serial killer iceberg, right? A torture iceberg, how to get away with murder iceberg, just things like that. But it's always something that I do when I'm driving. And I also listen to it when I'm like cleaning up, like around my house, like kind of when I'm like engaged in something else, but I'm not really fully engaged, So like I'll listen to a podcast while I'm like on a long drive, or like I said, if I'm cleaning, I'll listen to a podcast because it's just kind of like, benign stuff that I'm doing. It's kind of uninteresting, I guess. So that kind of popped into my head of like, I wonder what people do when they listen to At All Hours. So that's what I want to know from any of you that listen. What do you do when you're listening to episodes of At All Hours? Like, do you sit down at home and like, maybe you have like at my house, I have my Xbox plugged into like the TV in the front. So it's like we, can throw on YouTube or throw on whatever. Like, do you put it like on the TV and like maybe clean up and just have the episode playing? Do you just pop in, your headphones or something and maybe shout out to my boy Jose. He told me that he always just kind of will draw and like listen to music or draw and listen to like At All Hours or just kind of have it on, when he's like doing other things. So that's something I'm always like curious about because, for the most part, it's always comedy that's on this like podcast, but at some point it's going to delve into, other topics depending on guests that I'm going to have on, which reminds me, I have some really, really fun guests lined up very soon. Hopefully if I can get their schedules right with mine. But yeah, like it's just one of those things that I feel like most of the time is just comedy. It's just laughing, fucking around. So it's like, do you drive and put on, oh, there's new At All Hours every Friday it comes out. Okay, I'll throw it on right now. Drive home, throw it on. Or is it like I'm at home and or am I working out and like I'll put it on? And yeah, every time I go to the gym every Saturday and I put on At All Hours and I'll listen to it. And we try to shoot for an hour per episode. So that's kind of something I wanted to know from all you fucking freaks out there. Also, we should try to like do collectively is try to come up, because like, okay, a lot of podcasts or just like, things, shows, they have like a name for fans, right? So I think like this is another one I used to listen to a lot was It's Always Sunny, like the It's Always Sunny podcast, because it's literally just the guys from the show just talking, and it's awesome. And I'm a really big It's Always Sunny fan, and I think they call their fans creeps. And then like Fuckface calls their fans regulation listeners, and like I think it's like also, what is it, regulation comment leavers, or comment leavers and then regulation listeners. So things like that are always like really cool, and that made me think like, well, what would At All Hours fans be called? Something to think about. Maybe if you have a good idea, then you could be like, hey, At All Hours, I think that if we're going to have a fan base, they should be called this because of this reason. And then we're going to reply, and then our social media lead is going to be like, Greg, this is what they're saying. This is what the people want to be called. And I'm going to be like, okay, what do you think? And then they're going to be like, fuck them. I'm like, okay. Let them know. And then they're going to reply, and they're going to message you back and go, fuck you, shut up. Just kidding. Or not. I don't know what they're going to do. But I guess it depends on the suggestion. If it's stupid, then they're going to be like, fuck you, shut up. But if it's a good suggestion, then they might be like, fuck you, keep talking, But it's something to think about, something to consider. And who knows how long it's going to be until we like kind of come. Maybe there's just not a name, Maybe we don't need one. Maybe it's more than that. We're like a family, So we'll see. We'll see when the name comes up. If it doesn't, whatever then. Now this is actually insane to me, and apparently to nobody else, because, well, I asked one other person this question, and they immediately got it right, and it made me really upset because like, it's like, when you find something out and you're just like, oh my God, like this is insane. And everyone's like, no, it's not. And then you're like, of course it is. Watch, check this out. And you go and ask someone like, if we did this, this would happen. And then they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Or like, how long do you think it would take for this to happen? And then they're like, well, about this long. And they like nail it. Like, what the fuck is that about? You know? So what I'm talking about, does anyone know what I'm talking about? What I'm talking about is the fact that, because we're talking about like, you know, how long before we have a name for, like, you know, the At All Hours family. Like, when does that come? Like, when does the time frame on that? But it made me think about like when certain milestones are going to happen for At All Hours, because we had episode 10, my parents were on, and they were hammered, and it was really fun. It was really funny, and it was a really special episode because we got into the double digits now. You know, obviously we hit number 10, and although granted it's not like a huge milestone, and like it's not the biggest milestone in the world, but it's the fact that we've had 10 consistent episodes, and that we've been able to put out episodes consistently every Friday. We try to, you know, there's I think a couple episodes, maybe at least one for sure, that we were late on. But you know, consistently putting out episodes weekly, and it's something that it was something to be proud of. To show like we got to double digits. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm starting a podcast and, you know, having this like team to make this podcast, and then going from there to just like, oh, 4 episodes came out and then stopped, and then 3 weeks later I put out an episode and then stopped. You know, it's like it's been consistent. And I started thinking about, you know, the next milestones, like, you know, maybe every 10, some like a special guest, episode 20, you know, I don't know, maybe it's already planned out. Maybe we already have episode 20 planned out and who the guests are going to be. Ooh, did I say guests? I don't know. Is it going to be a video episode? Ooh, kind of weird. Maybe I shouldn't have got drunk and, you know, said all that. Well, whatever. So yeah, it's like we want to do special things for certain milestones. So for me, episode 10 was important. I had my parents on. It was really fun. And then it's like episode 20, sure, episode 30. But then it's like a big one is going to be like episode 50, right? And then obviously, like the first, like the real big milestone, episode 100. Like that's pretty crazy to think about, like episode 100. So that's like, to give you guys some like some context, because I think on I don't know if it shows. I never actually checked, I guess, but on I think Apple Podcasts, maybe everywhere, it shows or it lists At All Hours as a bi-weekly podcast, meaning that we put out an episode every other week. Obviously we've been doing it weekly, but it's still listed as bi-weekly. And at the time when I started At All Hours, I had like had this thought of, well, I can do it bi-weekly because, you know, it's 2 weeks to make a single episode. Like, it's not going to be hard at all. But when I did the math on it, it wasn't very hard math, but what I mean was like when I thought about it for more than a few seconds, I was like, well, if I do it bi-weekly, that's only 2 episodes per month. It's only like, maybe like, let's just say we hit an hour per episode. It's only 2 hours of content every month. Like that just kind of doesn't seem like a lot. And it's not a lot, especially like in the, you know, the time that we live in where it's like you could get so much content so much sooner, or so much quicker and more consistently, that like just 2 hours per month just didn't seem like a lot. And then I was like, well, when would episode 100 come out? And this is the question that I asked to whoever. It might have been like a couple people, but when I asked, actually it might have been Jose. Shout out to Jose again, because he might have pissed me off for getting it right. I was like, do you know when episode 100? Oh, I think it was him. Shit. I was like, do you know when episode 100 would come out? And he's like about 2 years. And I was like, yeah, that's like exactly right. It's like 2 years. And he's like, yeah, that makes sense. Whatever. Okay, Mr. fucking Rain Man over here, you know, fucking just crunching the numbers in your brain, dude. Just taking it to the dome like that, bro. I don't know how the fuck you do that shit. It's like, I was like, okay, well, what day of the week does October 13th of 2014 land on? And he's like, it's a Tuesday. I'm gonna check that when I'm editing, and if I actually guessed that correctly, put in a cool sound, and if I guessed it wrong, then do the well, what is it, the game show is like? just put in the game show sound that I'm thinking of, and if I got it wrong, then I guess we'll see. And then you can use one of these 2 audio clips afterwards. We all make mistakes. I got it wrong. That's okay. We're human. We're only human. That's fucking right, idiots. Of course I knew that shit. I know fucking everything. Okay? Okay? It's that easy. Okay, but whatever. So, 2 years. 2 years. An episode every single week. It would be 2 years before I hit episode 100. I'm only 33 with 34 followers on Instagram for my podcast hitting episode 100. Isn't that fucking crazy? Like, I could have another album out. Or maybe a couple of EPs. You guys be into that? Maybe? I don't know. You tell me. But, like, I could have more music out before I have episode 100 under my belt of At All Hours. That was episode number 13, the spooky episode. Thank you guys for listening, and I always appreciate you guys commenting, letting me know how you're enjoying it, or if you think it sucks, then fuck you, don't say anything. Just kidding, you could say whatever you want, but fuck you still. And I really appreciate you guys listening all the time. It always means the most. And yeah, I guess we'll wait around to see. We'll see if you guys can let me know about all those things that I asked you today, which I already forgot. Which was what, like your favorite form of torture, what you think the At All Hours like family name should be, what you do when you're listening to At All Hours. Let me know, and then if you send this to anyone, let me know, or let us know, like who you send it to. Who are you trying to show this bullshit to? You know. But yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for listening, and okay, bye.